Stryfe is the new season pass in Marvel Snap, and after testing him for the last almost 5 hours, yeah, it's worth it to get the season pass. I am going to say that the card is good, but you need a little bit of time with him. Allow me to explain. One of the most important interactions with Stryfe that a lot of people are immediately testing is Fin Fang Foom, but also Shou Lao. And the way that this card actually ends up playing with Shou Lao makes it more like Sage or Wolfsbane than it does actual Shou Lao. So if you're going to be trying those, please understand this. If you're playing Stryfe to go off at the end of the game with the Shou Lao still in your hand, and he's the last card played, he will buff himself. He will not buff the card played before him. Found that out a couple of times the hard way. In addition to that, though, I do think that the card in the Fin Fang Foom sense is stupid. Like, really good. I would rather take a 4/6 on curve than a 7/10 that I got to cheat. So the fact that I don't have to play the Fin Fang Foom and Stryfe just does the thing, that's great. What I did run into is some of the deck builds that I originally started with didn't have enough on reveals in the lower costs, because typically you want to wait on this one as long as possible. You want to get Stryfe down to become Fin Fang Foom, really only as Fin Fang Foom, later on after all of the on-reveals have happened, all the card movements and buffs and add-ons. You want that to happen later, which means this as a later play needs to make sure you have enough on reveals happening prior before it so you can drop it down towards the final turn for it to do its magical thing. There were a couple of pieces and unique things in here I do want to shout out, but I am going to showcase, how it all actually came together. I tried 4 different decks. You know the drill. That's what I do here. And if you ever want to see this happening live and kind of help through it, please join us on Twitch. Just like how you always, like and or subscribe, if that's the word, for every video that we do here. I greatly appreciate that. So let's dive into what worked and what didn't. I tried some unique things, but I also then tried some like, oh, duh, this is what you should probably play style things. Let's talk about the ones that didn't work. Just plopping Shou Lao directly in to some weird combo-y crap, right? I tried a weird move bounce Shou Lao deck. I tried a variation on the zombie deck to just try some stuff, okay? Not as successful, but there are some very key learnings I got from each of them, which I'll talk about. Clearly, it's the beginning of the season as well. Certain decks are going to perform better than others. More energy as you're climbing to infinite always works better. Clearly, that is the case. And then, of course, the game of Stryfe, which I want to talk about probably last, because it was probably one of the better homes that we might not be fully thinking about. So what I learned from this deck, Stryfe Afterlife, is Zombie Giant Man for Stryfe is a potential synergy. It is something to target, but I wouldn't mix them. What I discovered with Stryfe, and this is a consistent theme across every single deck, is that Stryfe wants one target per cost, so you always know 100% what it's going to be. So this deck, it happened several times where I had to make tough decisions about, did I want to play out the Zombie Giant Man and only hold on to the Shou Lao, but then Zombie Giant Man's the card that got played last, so I need to make sure I have the one. And there's different ways that you can balance this deck, of course. We can take out Grandmaster, we can move away from the Werewolf package, but honestly, the Werewolf package really did work. Majestic Wingbeat, big win in this deck. Big win in this deck. I do think there's a little bit of tweaking that can make it better, and one of them is actually taking out Shou Lao, because if you're going in on the Zombies package, you should go a little further in on it. I'm probably taking out Shou Lao. I'm probably putting in Zombie Mr. Fantastic. I might even be looking at putting in Zombie Sentry in some place to really lean heavier on that package. I do think there's something to Stryfe mixed with Zombie Giant Man, but it needs more earlier on reveals to do that, especially if you're trying to do a werewolf and a zombie Scarlet Witch, where those are 3-cost cards. You need more 1-cost on reveals, and Hawkeye Kate Bishop wasn't enough. I went into this not doing any Merlins specifically. I might have to reconsider that again. What I took then from A World of Pain and Stryfe is move, bounce, Stryfe shenanigans. The idea of this was to learn if Stryfe could exclusively be a 4-cost Sholau, where I never have to play Sholau. He literally, every time he's drawn, just sits in my hand and then do just like movie, bouncy type of stuff. And what I learned from this is that it wasn't enough. Stryfe needed to have multiple targets at multiple costs. That's when then you have this dynamic playability with the card, where then you're saying it's not all in on making this be a cheat synergy, it's all in on this cheat synergy at this cost. So having one at 4 cost, 5 cost, 6 cost, 7 cost, however many of them you think is going to be best to make this card work, that really did become the most important part of what I learned from this deck. This deck did not do really that well. You either make it a move bounce deck and you don't play Stryfe, or you make it a Stryfe deck and you tweak it just slightly. That I would highly recommend the latter. What I took from Just Call Me Cloud, I mean, I expected this 100% to do exactly what it did. It was just straight up, it's a Star-Lord deck. But what did Stryfe bring to the table? Stryfe becoming Blink was surprisingly good. Stryfe becoming Star-Lord. Now, this was the time where I said, okay, I've got 2 5s. I can justify that because I'm typically also then sitting on at least an Arnim Zola, if not also a Fin Fang Foom. So if you're going to have multiple of a cost, you got to have at least 2 other tiers above it. And that's when I felt like, okay, this balance actually did work. I did not feel bad about this because Stryfe often could even become a Juggernaut because you're just getting all of the ramp things to happen in a variety of different ways. It was really surprisingly strong in this shell because of having 2 5-cost cards that it could turn into. And I'm going to heavily promote Blink over Legion in this space because it was also another way to get some other weird shenanigans to happen, like playing Grandmaster into Blink, take out the Grandmaster and have it, even if it just turns into a Stryfe, Stryfe is very often turning into one of the other bigger cards. So that was really good. And I mean, this deck, I probably wouldn't touch anything on. I think this deck as is best. Maybe Galactus First Steps, negotiable. It's negotiable for it to be something that's like replaceable. And that's even debatable, to be honest. So really, really good. One of my more prominent decks I would promote. The last one I want to talk about the most in this video is the game of Stryfe, because Stryfe ended up being really solid in this deck. And I don't think that this is the final version of the deck. It is not. I honestly think there's one major improvement that can be made from this deck, and it did really well. And it's Hulk. I had Hulk in here because I didn't want to have Giganto. I'm looking at this as a Drac dump style deck, you know, Jubilee, Dragon Lord, and Sabanor, etc. I took out the Quicksilver to have the Squirrel Girl. It worked out more than fantastic. Put in Debris to make sure that those 2 cards alone, between Jubilee, Dragon Lord, Squirrel Girl, Debris, and Sabanur, had the ability to flip more than consistently enough. But it did need all of them. What I would do is I would take out Hulk, and this would be the test I want to do, is then I'd actually probably want to test it with Blob. And we talked about it in the live chat, where it would be then 2 6s, right? It would have 2 on reveals. In this deck, which is basically a ramp deck, even if you got Fin Fang Foom out early, or you only had Magneto or Blob, you felt really good with either of those options at any given point in time. So Stryfe turning into either of them would probably be really good. You can run this exactly as is, these 12 cards, and it felt great. You want to, if you're really a Quicksilver believer, go for it, have fun. The squirrels actually did help the consistency quite a bit, and also reaching into other lanes quite a bit. I really enjoyed this deck. I do think that there is something here. And for a first day experiment of trying to figure out how Stryfe is and what he does best, I mean, you're going to see people put him into the Sholau deck, but it's got to be leaner. And if you're playing it into another 5 package where it's only like the Zombie Giant Man stuff, you need more options. He's not a card that specifically says, I want to be one target and that's it. That was probably the overall biggest takeaway. So is this a card that you should probably get? In my opinion, yes, it is a card you should get as a season pass, and not just because it's the season pass, but because it is a good card after just trying it out for a couple of hours. Where its final home is going to kind of end up, I would assume some kind of Star-Lord ramp, something along those lines is going to end up being the final home, where it's going to be strongest. The Fin Fang Foom thing is very real. Like, really real. And it's the combo to play, I'd say, probably over Shou Lao. As the number 1 and 2, like, type 1s, I definitely put Fin Fang Foom over it. But you will see Shou Lao stuff. So if you don't like either of those cards, you don't have either of those cards, I also don't want you to fret, because the Season Pass is still an incredibly good value. And as we spend more time with this card, we will find weird synergies past it. This is worth getting. It is a season pass, and it's something that you should have in your collection. So I am going to say it's good. I am going to say it's worth it. And I hope that it was worth it for you to watch this video. Like, subscribe, do all the fun stuff. And as always, I'll see you next time. Oh, I have to click the button, don't I?